Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. Okay, right into it, straight away. I've already deleted a 20-minute video that I just made because you could probably only hear me bleating about my confusion on the path forward. I was quite impressed with this approach. In fact, I'll back that up. I was quite impressed with this approach, and I've shown here the tabs lowered down to probably where they would want to be, but I did make the comment that if I were to use this approach, it would be nice to have slots in the timber, which could be a bit demanding to get it neat and accurate. It's not that I can't put a slot in there accurately, but getting it to the thickness required at 3mm, maybe. A hand saw cut is not 3mm wide, and putting a 3mm slot with a hand saw, yeah, a bit tricky. Circular saw, mine can only go to 82mm of depth if I was just to run this over the saw. If I run it along the saw, I'd get the radial type thing where I'd have to finish it off. Probably have to buy a nice Japanese flush cut saw for that. That's very viable. So the slot becomes a little bit more of an option, positive option. Or I'd have to use a reasonable quality bandsaw, of which I don't have. So that elegant and quite attractive to me approach still has merit, but when I come to this area here, and if I were to use this approach, and it may not be, and 2 layers with packers on top to take battens, etc., the look from underneath, yeah, not so nice to my eye. So I start seeing these sorts of cosmetic or aesthetic values starting to diminish the appeal of the whole assembly. Then I thought, well, to be fair, I could lift the bottom assemblies up, let's just say 10mm, meaning I retain timber, wood, on the bottom, coach bolts from underneath, the heads would look nice, there'd be a consistency to it, so that's doable. The nuts and threads would go through the plates, and they would ideally have a packer like this that would support the battens. So if I quickly put the battens on, if they were like that, they would tidy it up reasonably well. But each step I make detracts from using this approach. So have I reached a point where the first flush of the romance of this attraction is now being undermined by a little bit of reality? It demands. Like the idea of the simple tabs, making them a bit wider to make this joint stronger, and you know the story behind that. This look with a bolt through the middle of it, very, very attractive. If I again just made that a group, dropped it down, oops, see if I can move it. If I were to drop it down like that, that would be very attractive. Thank you very much. Let's carry on. Not as stable as I'd want, but because we know it's a geodesic dome, it is self-stabilizing in a lot of other areas. So anyway, don't worry about that. Do I? Don't I? Don't know. Or do I do this? Let's see if I can. This is another approach where you have no hubs, no problem, well, no problem, different problems, and the look of it is nice and neat. My much preferred hub system, which was where I had the tubular center hub, steel pipe, with the threaded rod and pipe through it, still has, in my sense, the best approach cosmetically and strength-wise. Don't know about stable, but strength-wise, because you can torque up a 12mm bolt pretty darn high and achieve good mechanical attachment between the steel hub and the strut. None of these have that same sort of approach, but they might be equally strong. They just don't, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I can't quantify that. This, it's hard to quantify, but what they've done is they've made, and I've already done 90% of the drawings for this anyway, and you've probably, if anyone's been crazy enough to look at the other videos, you will have seen where I was using a mitered but nonetheless square cuts to these triangles, so they're effectively a three-sided box. And they've got a gap on the top side, which is the dihedral angle. If you put a fillet in it, you'd create the required dihedral angles. Well, that's the tricky bit for that process, for this approach rather. But having done that, all they do is bolt the damn things together. Make sure you make the individual triangles strong so you can fix through the miter, and then when you attach them together, they make quite a rigid structure. The pressure down, so under normal loads, in other words, snow loads, and you could say most, just to say snow loads and some wind pressure, it's going to work fine. Uplift, when wind gets underneath a structure like this, and mine won't be much dissimilar from this, yeah, well, that's demanding of a little bit of a different path engineering. But I think I can mitigate that already in my own mind. A bit like when we have a stud to top plate connection, we have a little metal strip that can be nailed, or can actually be a nail plate with the teeth already pressed into it. But little strips of those sorts of materials across the top of the triangles would stop the hinging and opening up of the struts, or triangles. But really, these bolts, they're going to do everything that I could possibly require. I'm sure. Wind them up, put a couple more in the corner here, whatever. I'm sure that will do all the work I could ever ask of it, or an engineer require of me. But this approach is, I'll just bring another, oops, let's see what I can, whoa, doesn't like that, does it? Okay. That's what we're talking about there. They've got heavy, well, you can see it in this drawing here, heavier frame for the leg, the bottom triangle in other words, and then you've got the top. Now this is a 5-cornered dome, whereas mine's 4, and their angle between the top and the leg is much greater than is mine. So mine approach still has a high demand in this area, probably greater than this. I've said before, I may be over egging the situation, but if I don't do it sufficiently and I have a problem, well, I've got a problem. Whoops. Same thing there. It's just showing you a different angle of the same thing, but it's not. I don't like the legginess of this, but you know, I'm just showing you some photos that I've dragged together. It's showing a very similar design. The heaviness in the struts, not unattractive. This is about the size I'd want to make, there or thereabouts. and they've just got screens of whatever type, probably with a batten holding them down as well. Surprise, surprise. It's a functional item to hold down, or be, yeah, just to hold down things. So, what do we do? Well, what we do is carry on. I'll just get rid of these. Carry on looking at the different options and weighing up whether I want the complexity, even though it's a simple joint of this, or the elegance of my tube and my threaded rod, etc., and pipe, which I still do favour, or I go, flag it, let's try just making up the triangle, shall we? And bolting them together. The biggest downside is getting the accuracy in the spacer fillet to create the correct dihedral angles. That is a major issue for me. I don't know how to overcome that one yet easily. Anyway, there you go. That was a really neutral to negative video about my dome. I really would like to get this resolved, and I thought I'd had until I started making up all the additional pieces that needed to be included, and it's starting to lose its attractiveness to me. Wonder what the next video is going to be about. Might have a relook at this joint using the steel pipe, threaded rod and pipe, and I might have a quick look back at some of the drawings I've done with just the triangles assembled together. Righty-ho, that's it. Onwards and upwards, as they say. I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye now.